Now to a major update in a story this team has followed closely for weeks now. A man is behind bars tonight for the deadly shooting of 13-year-old Karon Blake. You remember the teenager was shot and killed in Northeast D.C. earlier this month. We're going to get smarter about this case tonight. Let's start with three things you need to know. First, D.C. police say the suspect is 41-year-old Jason Lewis. He works for D.C.'s Department of Parks and Recreation. Second, Lewis is charged with second-degree murder while armed. And third, police released a new video of the moments leading up to that shooting. We'll get into that new clarity on what happened the night of that shooting and some context on what comes next. All right, Longo spoke to a legal expert. He has new insight on how this case could play out. And Casey Nolan spoke to the grandfather of Karon Blake tonight. He starts us off with that interview. All new at 11. Hey, Casey.
So when Karon was killed, his grandfather told me he believed if a white child had died that way, an arrest would have been immediate. Tonight, more than 3 weeks later, we met at the lounge he runs, where he told me today's charges are one step toward justice.
God gave us a little justice, but don't get too happy.
Because the full measure will only come with a conviction, says Sean Long. On January 7th, his grandson, 13-year-old Karon Blake, was shot and killed in Northeast D.C. while allegedly breaking into cars. Tuesday, police announced second-degree murder charges against the man who admits he pulled the trigger but maintains his innocence. Longtime D.C. Parks employee and father of four, 41-year-old Jason Lewis.
He made a wrong decision. He should have, when he heard the noise, saw it, he should have called the police.
Instead, police say surveillance video shows Lewis came out of his home with a gun and first fired at the getaway car with two other kids inside. Police say the video shows Karon was across the street and started running, and for some reason ran toward Lewis, who fired 3 more times, hitting and killing him.
You know, if you're not in fear of, or an immediate threat to your physical being or someone else's, that is problematic.
He came out the door, it's like he just want to take the law in his own hands, and that's what he did.
Police say the video also captured Karon's last words, yelling several times, "I'm sorry," and "Please don't. I'm a kid."
And that really hurts me because, to be honest, he was begging for his life. That's what he was doing, begging for his life.
In a statement, Lewis's attorney said Mr. Lewis has dedicated his career to mentoring and supporting youth in the District of Columbia, which only adds to how distraught he is over the death of Karon Blake, adding that once all the facts are heard, he believes a jury will find there was no crime here.
I feel sorry for you because you know you're guilty.
Karon's grandfather believes without all of the public support, he might still be waiting on an arrest. The chief said today the investigation took this much time because that's the time it required to make their case. So
yeah, Karon's family and the community have been begging for these details for weeks now, and what we learned today was truly so heartbreaking. Casey, thank you so much. And the suspect in this case, Jason Lewis, turned himself into police. He pled not guilty to murder charges. You're looking at sketches from his first court appearance today. I want to bring in our Adam Longo for a look at what comes next here. Hey, Adam.
So, Lorenzo, it took prosecutors more than 3 weeks after Karon Blake was killed for these charges to be filed. They've moved on this case methodically and deliberately, deciding on second-degree murder, which would obviously carry some pretty serious prison time. So, how will this case play out in the legal system? How likely is it the case will actually go to a trial? Well, a few hours ago on our new WSA 9 News at 7 broadcast, I spoke with former criminal defense attorney Philip Thompson about the key legal arguments that'll likely play out.
Probably try to argue, he was coming at me. I was backing up because I think it says in the tape that he was backing up as he shot, and he fired the shots in order to protect himself. He felt he was threatened. And it's going to come down to whether a jury can buy off on that argument relating to whether he felt threatened enough to fire that weapon.
So in D.C., the law is plain and clear. You can't use lethal force to protect property. And you can't even use lethal force in self-defense unless you have an actual or reasonable belief that you're in imminent danger of death or serious bodily harm. So that pins the whole case on Lewis's state of mind and what he actually saw.
I think this is one of these cases where maybe the defense attorney has to put his client on the stand. A lot of times you don't have to put your client on the stands, and sometimes it can be problematic in putting your client on the stands because of the ability to cross-examine. But I think in this case, with these charges and these circumstances, Mr. Wilson's going to have to explain his actions.
So the judge did not appear swayed at all during Lewis's first court appearance today. She called the facts of the case, quote, exceptionally concerning, describing Lewis as the first aggressor and saying prosecutors would likely succeed with their case. Lorenzo.
Yeah, that says a lot that the judge is making that sort of statement at the outset of this case. Adam, thank you. And by the way, I should point out the judge has denied bail for Lewis. He'll be back in court on February 13th, and you can count on us to stay on top of this story for you.